Good morning, Downtown STEM Academy. My name is Stephen Wang.
My name is Jason Ciato. Welcome back to another episode of STEM TV, Quarantine Edition. We hope you had a great weekend. Let's jump right into it.
But before we start the episode, we'd like to remind you that STEM TV is still looking for student-submitted segments to air on STEM TV Quarantine Edition Season 2. If you have any ideas or talents you want to share, please click on the link in the description below.
To start this week's episode, we have Mitchell with STEM Sports. Let's hand it to him to get an update about school and professional sports.
Hello and welcome to another week of STEM Sports. I'm your host, Mitchell Weiniger, and let's get into this week's sports action. For the Downingtown West Whippets, they began their season with a hard-fought loss against the Coatesville Red Raiders by a score of 22-14. The Whippets came out fighting as they took a 14-7 lead going into halftime. In this first start of the season, quarterback Evan Wickersham came out strong as he led the team to their first lead of the game with a passing touchdown. Right before halftime, Nasir Harris got into the end zone to extend the Whippets' lead to 14-7. In the second half, the Coatesville team was awoken as they came out strong as they quickly got a safety against the West offense, and West could not stop them after that as they would roll on to a 22-14 victory. By the time this video comes out, West will have already played Avongrove, but this week they will play Westchester East. That game can be found live streamed on the DW YouTube page. Now for the Downingtown East Cougars. They came into their game against Avongrove looking for an answer to their poor performance the week before against LaSalle, and they sure found it. It all started when starting running back Josh Asante barreled in for the first touchdown of the game for the Cougars. Next up to score for East was junior wide receiver Michael Giordino as he caught his first of 2 touchdowns of the night. Soon after, Asante got 2 more rushing touchdowns as he had a total of 3 on the day. Asante was not supposed to start at running back today, but senior Stanley Bryant, the star linebacker and running back, was held out of the game due to an injury. The first team got their last touchdown of the night as Michael Giordino caught his second touchdown of the game right before halftime. To end the game, Downingtown East scored 2 more times as they rolled to an easy and well-deserved win against Avongrove with a final score of 47-0. Downingtown East will, when this video comes out, will have already played Coatesville. They will not have a game this Friday as they will be a bye week due to them starting their season a week earlier than Downingtown West. That is all I have for you this week. I'm Mitchell Weiniger, and this has been STEM Sports.
Thank you for the sports update, Mitchell. Due to COVID-19, many school sports are looking very different this year, with shorter seasons and very small audiences. To help people safely watch the games, STEM TV will be live streaming all football home games for both East and West. If you want to watch any of the games, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any live streams.
Next up, we have STEM Happenings hosted by Aparna. Let's find out what club she's interviewing this time. Take it away, Aparna.
Hi, Downingtown STEM Academy. This is Aparna Bugvala, your host, and this week we'll be finding more about another one of the wonderful clubs that our school has to offer. So our special guest for today's interview is the Tabletop Games Club. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hey, what's up?
All right, let's get started. Could you just quickly introduce yourselves?
My name's Daniel Sandino Salazar. I was the person who kind of started this all and got a bunch of people signed on.
I'm Ethan Rutkowski. I'm one of the founding members. Is that the word for it?
Yeah, that works.
So let's get into talking a bit about your club. Do you guys think you could give us just a brief description of what Tabletop Games Club is?
Yeah.
For it. So basically, Tabletop Games Club is just a club where you can go in after school for a couple hours, or virtually here after school on any day of the week. Though normally we would do Tuesdays when we went in school, and there you just play just any game that would be on the tabletop. Could be from role-playing games to card games to board games.
Oh yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. So thanks for answering my next question, actually, was when your club is going to meet. But I'd also like to know a little bit about the atmosphere. Like, what kind of people like to join your club? What kind of friendships can you establish there? Like, tell me a little bit about the atmosphere of your meetings.
Yeah.
The
So
atmosphere is I'll go over this one. It's
yep. All right.
it's usually much more casual. We usually not a formality. I mean, it's a tabletop games club, so I mean, a bit more casual. Uh, we're usually often discussion trails away from the main focus to some people's uh, dismay. So,
Mhm.
So from what
Yeah.
I'm
I
understanding,
mean,
it's a really good place to kind of like
yeah,
talk to each other,
talk
know
to each
each other.
other.
We're all there to play games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. So from what I understand, each game manager runs one of the games played during your club meetings. So do you
Yeah.
give
Yes.
a brief description of like what games you run or some of the other games that you guys play?
Yeah. So I'd like to go a bit more in detail that each game master or game advisor or whatnot controls a different role-playing game, but that's not necessarily the case if you do a board game or a card game. There isn't really just a direct person running it, but instead you just find people and then you can play. But for role-playing games, I'll get into what campaign is what it's called that I do. I do two for the club. I do one for Dungeons and Dragons, one of the most popular role playings out there. For in one of their settings called Eberron, which is kind of like fantasy but with steampunk using magic, right? And then my second campaign is called Blades in the Dark, which is more kind of fast-paced heists in a dark, gritty city while you're a bunch of criminals.
All right. There's a few other ones. I'll probably detail them. So I run a D&D campaign in a a more typical fantasy setting. It's a bit more akin to the setting of Lord of the Rings. Not like exactly, a lot of differences in fact, but it's aimed toward the newer players. If you're joining the club, I'd recommend you join this. I'll detail the other campaigns that are going on. The first one is actually my it's Manav's campaign. He runs a D&D game, but it's a sort of a modification of it as like a Star Wars type thing. Um, oh right, yeah. Also, Connor, he's running another D&D game from a pre-written adventure
Mm-hmm.
called Lost Fans of Fendelver. I don't really know too much about it.
That's another
So,
good beginner campaign if anyone else is interested in that.
and then Jules is running a game of it is planning to run Cyberpunk Red A, the tabletop game that the video game coming out is based on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is very sci-fi and kind of in this dystopia, I would say.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I'm sure many STEM students would be interested in joining you. And thank you so much for highlighting the ones that would be great for beginners, because I know a lot of people that have been wanting to get into tabletop games like this. So your club is definitely a great place for them to start. So how have you been adapting these games to the virtual setting? Just can you give us some details on that?
Yeah, of course.
All right, you can go over.
I can go? Okay.
Yeah.
So it honestly depends whether you'd want to go with board games or card games. That one's a bit harder than role-playing games. We've kind of dedicated a lot of our time toward role-playing games, as you could probably tell, with a lot of game masters doing their own campaigns. Though you don't have to play a role-playing game if you're part of this club, just to put that out there. But if you're doing a role-playing game, it's pretty easy. You just need to hop on. We can use like a Zoom or any other kind of talking sort of software, and that's pretty much it, because there's a bunch of online resources for dice or character sheets, such as for D&D. There's an official website called D&D Beyond that digitalizes all the character information that they've released as products. And since we're a club in school, our club advisor, Mr. Hambiki, was actually able to get this kind of special program in D&D Beyond where we can get all the materials for free.
Oh, that's really cool. That sounds like
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, so it's great to hear that you guys have kind of been pulling through and making most of like kind of weird situation that's going on.
Hmm.
Now we're nearing the end of the interview, but before we say our goodbyes, is there any last things that you want the STEM students watching this interview to know about your club?
Anything, Ethan?
No, not at the moment.
No? Yeah, I'd just like to add, there's no requirements for like you have to go once a week or anything like that. Just come when you want to have fun, either playing a role playing game, a card game, or a board game. And we do meet after school or in this online virtual environment anytime after school ends. It's case by case dependent. And we do talk on C days during club days, but that's mostly just to if we need to plan anything or just to talk about what has happened.
Mm-hmm. So thanks for sharing. Thanks for coming on the show, guys. So that brings us to the end of our interview. That's all for today.
Yeah, thanks for
Yeah, thank you very much.
hosting us.
So, all right, STEM Academy, I'll be back soon with another interview. But until then, have a great week, and I'll see you later on STEM Happenings.
Thank you, Aparna. It's great seeing all the different clubs we have here at STEM, and we're excited to see who you interview next time.
Next up, Cami returns with her show on the Cami Payne trial, which will give you the scoop on current political climate.
Thank you guys. As usual, I'm Cami Klingen, and I'm super excited to bring you guys this week's edition of On the Cami Payne Trail. I got a good segment for you all today. We got new hair, new setup, check that out, and a new camera, so brace yourself. We as a country are in the midst of one of the biggest and most important elections of our lives. News and current events are swirling around faster than ever. I hope to do my best to keep you all as informed as possible. Let's jump right into it. Our first story concerns the massive strides that are projected to be taken for America's relationship with Sudan. In 1933, when the Eastern African country's ruler, President Omar al-Bashir, was accused by the White House of blatantly supporting terrorism, Sudan was added to the USA's State Sponsors of Terrorism list, which includes just North Korea, Iran, and Syria. Al-Bashir was deposed in a coup last year. Abdallah Hamdok, the current Sudanese prime minister, has expressed that said acts of terrorism have cost Sudan too much. New government of Sudan, which is making great progress, agreed to pay $335 million to U.S. terror victims and families. Once deposited, I will lift Sudan from the state sponsors of terrorism list. At long last, justice for the American people and a big step for Sudan, tweeted President Trump. With the frantic and busy state of the ongoing election, it is definitely still up in the air whether or not we can count on Washington for an adequate follow-through. Bringing us to our next section of the segment is the approval of Amy Coney Barrett's nomination for the Supreme Court. On Thursday, October 22nd, the controversial nominated presented by President Trump merely days after Justin Ginsburg's passing, passed by a striking 12-0. The effect of a Democratic boycott. This move by Trump was comprehended by many Americans as disrespectful in many forms, especially since RBG's wish was for the White House to wait for the election to conclude before any nominations were made. It is expected that Coney Barrett's position in the Supreme Court will be solidified due to the Republican majority in the Senate. Although it seems that the decision period of Amy Coney Barrett's position may be coming to a close soon, both ends of the political spectrum still seem very frustrated about the entire event. Many feel that Coney Barrett has been avoiding really answering the questions at the hearings, and many feel that the more in-depth than often questions are purely for show. I have no doubt that I'll be updating you all on Amy Coney Barrett's role in the government next time we air this segment. Now, on to our third story of the day. America has seen an inexplicable spike in citizens threatening the well-being of figures in our government. It began when 14 men plotted to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, which was thoroughly controversial for more than one obvious reason. This horrible scheme, crafted by white supremacists, was being broadcasted by many sources as an organized militia, when it really is a form of domestic terrorism, not a brave organization of citizens wanting to defend their country. The very same group of convicted individuals that hope to liberate Michigan, liberate Minnesota, and liberate Virginia also sent vicious threats and discussed taking violent action against Virginia Governor Ralph Northam. This radical alt-right group believes that America needs to be freed from a tyrannical, lockdown-enforcing, left-leaning deep state. These events, unfortunately, inspired at least one more person, 42-year-old Maryland native James Dale Reed. Frighteningly, he wasn't planning to target candidate Joe Biden and running mate California Senator Kamala Harris. Although these candidates equally deserve necessary safety, they have better access to security resources, unlike his neighbors that he thought shouldn't have the right to support their candidate of choice. The following note was left on the doorsteps of unsuspecting citizens on October 4th. This is a warning. To anyone reading this letter, if you are a Biden-Harris supporter, you will be targeted. We have a list of homes and addresses by your election signs. We are the ones with those scary guns. We are the ones your children have nightmares about. Creepy. The letter goes on for quite a while, detailing violent and fatal acts that he says he plans to incite upon Biden and Harris on national television. If convicted, James Dale Reed will face 5 years in prison. Holy moly, this week's stories were not light. So I'm very excited to bring you today's edition's feel-good story. Get ready to be transported to the Hainan Province Island south of continental China, home of the gibbon. Gibbons are an endangered type of ape, predominantly populating southern China and western Indonesia. There are only about 30 gibbons remaining on Hainan Island, so naturally the fragile ecosystem was shattered when a landslide tore down an arboreal highway used daily by these apes. These little guys already face the looming threat of deforestation, and they could disappear if no one decides to step in and help. Local conservationists created a makeshift rope bridge that the gibbons can use until the patch of forest grows back, hopefully twice as lush. So many apes and downs! How bananas was that story? Once again, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's edition of On the Cami Pain Trail. I hope you learned something new. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Cami. With elections coming up, it's important to stay up to date on politics. Though most of us won't be able to vote this election, we encourage the student population to spread word on the importance of voting, whether it be in person or mail-in.
As our show winds down today, please take a moment to breathe and take care of yourself. Virtual learning can be very exhausting and stressful at times, so make sure you aside time for your own mental health.
Before we go, we'd like to remind you to join STEM TV to help us create new episodes of STEM TV Quarantine Edition. STEM TV allows for you to pick which specific weeks you want to participate, so STEM TV can best fit your individual schedule. If you're interested, please make sure to check the description below for more details on how to join.
For you today, Downingtown STEM Academy. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you again next week with another episode of STEM TV Quarantine Edition.